So I stumbled upon this video, and it's like by some random small, YouTube channel. Apparently 9 months ago. Apparently it blew up like 2 weeks ago with the release of KCD2, very likely. And it's Daniel Vavra, who is the game director for KCD2 and KCD1 as well, which is, if you don't know, Kingdom Come Deliverance, which is the game that are released like 2 weeks ago. What was it? 4th of February, I believe, in 2025. And this is him on like some sort of podcast, and it's in Czech, so we only have subtitles, unfortunately. But I think we'll try and have a watch of this. I did watch it very briefly, not the entire thing, but I just watched it very briefly yesterday evening or something, because that's when I got it recommended. So yeah, apparently Unreal Engine versus CryEngine. KCD2, and I believe KCD1 as well, was on the CryEngine. KCD2 at least is definitely on the CryEngine. And it has a distinct look, but it looks extremely good. KCD2 looks fantastic. It looks better than Stalker 2 did, even though Stalker 2 was on Unreal. 100% it looks better. 100%. It does have some minor issues, but it does not have anywhere close to as many technical issues and visual issues as what Stalker 2 did. There is also no mandatory TAA or upscaling required to make the game look decent, which there is in Stalker 2. Trust me, like watch my video on it. Like it's fucking garbage. KCD2 does not have that. You can run the game completely native, no upscaling, no TAA, and the game still looks fantastic. It looks crisp. It looks sharp. Obviously, you're likely just going to use some AA, but that's it. That's all you really need. The game looks fantastic. The game runs very well. I've heard people say, oh, KCD2 isn't well optimized at all. I think KCD2 is pretty fucking well optimized. Have you played the game, dude? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? I'm playing it all ultra high, like the highest of the high settings. I think it's just ultra, right? Ultra, native 1440p, and I'm getting consistently 100 plus frames. Probably in the most demanding areas, I'll drop to like 80 to 90. Which is actually, funnily enough, I haven't really found any consistent pattern. I haven't tested it extensively either, but just when I've tested it, I haven't found any consistent pattern as to when the FPS is worse. So I can't really tell you exactly what seems to be the most demanding part of the game, because it seems to handle like being in the middle of Kuttenberg, which is like the most densely populated place with NPCs in the game, seems to run it like just as well as the fucking wilderness. So I don't know, but I have seen in some areas or in some cases it will drop down to like high 80s, low 90s, somewhere there. But I'm very consistently, I have over 100 frames at native 1440p, everything ultra, like everything. No upscaling, no DLSS, no anything like that, and it looks fantastic. If that's not well optimized, bro, I don't know what is. That's pretty fucking good. For a game that, historically with KCD1 had as many problems. It's a relatively fresh studio. It's only their, second game ever, right? Hey, that's a pretty fucking good job. It runs super well. And yeah, it looks really well. There's only like one graphical problem I've encountered in, or at least one major one, or it's two major ones in CryEngine. It's basically I think it's the ambient occlusion fucking with the volumetric fog, especially around trees in in dusk. So like when the sun is going down and you get like lighting coming through the trees, you will have this like sort of, it's this weird blur thing that happens around the edges on the trees and stuff. I think it's the volumetric fog and the ambient occlusion that's like conflicting or something. It's pretty obvious. It's a pretty blatant thing. It's very hard to miss. But it's that, and it only happens at very specific lighting conditions. And the other main issue that I've seen visually with KCD2 is that in the evening, NPCs and certain objects will have this like bluish tint around them, which again, maybe is something to do with the shading or the AO, or I don't know. I honestly don't know what it is. but it has this like weird effect. It can also happen to the NPC's eyes if you're in a dimly lit cutscene, like an in-game cutscene, not like a pre-rendered one, but like an in-game cutscene. You'll have like the NPCs will all of a sudden have like really, really light blue eyes. They'll have like these light blue. It's probably the speculars, I guess, maybe then. At least for eyes, it could be the specular mapping. That's weird. But I don't know for the outline of the characters, because it's like the outline of the characters, models, and the outline of the objects will sometimes also get that same sort of bluish tint. Not as intense as it is on eyes, but it will have it. Like, it's noticeable, especially with movement. So it's a little bit weird. It's almost like ghosting, but it isn't ghosting. But it looks kind of similar to ghosting. It's like this weird shimmering thing. Again, could be specular. I don't know. But then it's weird that it's around it instead of on it, which is when the specular should be a thing, as far as I'm aware, with what little I know about game development and textures and models and stuff like that. But someone explain it to me if you know. Please let me know in the comments. But yeah, so it only really seems to be the two main graphical issues in KCD2 with the CryEngine. Else, it runs well. It looks really good, like really, really good. It looks better than most modern games. Straight up, it looks crisper, cleaner. It runs better, and as a result of running better, it just looks better and feels better to play. Unreal Engine is a fucking mess. Whether that is entirely because of the Unreal Engine, or if it's developers not being able to utilize the Unreal Engine well, that's, seems to be a ever ongoing discussion. But it just does not look the same. Like the Unreal Engine just does not look very good in most cases. It's very obvious that a game uses the Unreal Engine, and it's in a negative way. And I think that speaks volumes. When you can kind of tell that, yeah, this is Unreal Engine because of how shit it runs and how shit it looks. That's not a good thing. That's not a notch on Unreal Engine's shoulder right there. That's not something you want related to you. And if there's that much of if the Unreal Engine is the common denominator in so many fucking cases, there's probably a reason, right? Probably. So yeah, I don't have a lot of love for Unreal. I think it is probably one of the biggest detriments in gaming these days. I know a lot of people disagree, and a lot of people defend it by saying that it's not the Unreal Engine that is the problem. It is the developers that don't know how to use it. Hey, maybe. I don't know. I'm no game developer. There might be truth in that. But I think if there is any truth to that, I think it's as a result of the fact that the Unreal Engine is being sold to developers and advertised to developers as a sort of one-in-all solution. And then developers get sort of lulled into that. They buy into it, and then they develop a project on it for 2 years, and then they realize that, hey, the Unreal Engine isn't really doing this thing very well, and we kind of needed to do this thing because that's kind of core to our game. And then they realize that, oh shit, well, now we're kind of stuck because we've already sold into the Unreal Engine, and it's not really capable of doing the thing that we want, and we don't have the skill or knowledge or familiarity with the engine to tweak it so that it can do what we need it to do. And then as a result, you get a lot of problems, right? I think that's 100% one of the cases that, or is 100% the case if you want to blame developers for it. I think that's why. I think developers get sort of sold in, not necessarily under false pretenses, but sort of under a little bit of a misguided expectation, right, for what the Unreal Engine can do. And as a result, they don't develop their own proprietary stuff, which they would then be familiar with, they would have the knowledge of, they would know the ins and outs of it and be able to adapt it or just develop it initially to fit what they know that they want to have in their game. And then instead they go to the Unreal Engine because, hey, they can save a lot of money, they don't have to develop proprietary stuff, and they can just, plug and play. Let's develop a game. And yeah, I think they get sold in with that, and then they realize that, oh, the Unreal Engine isn't actually able to do this thing very well. Ooh, that's a problem. Right. But yeah, let's see the video. Oh shit. Fucking subtitles. Okay.
Mě by zajímalo, proč jste vybrali CryEngine si vlastně vůbec.
Protože v té době nic jiného to neutáhlo takhle.
A nebylo ještě jako.
A on teda ve skutečnosti to...
Yeah. And to be fair, Unreal Engine couldn't run it even today.
Unreal to neutáhne ani teďka, jako to vypadá. Jako já jsem se bavil s borcema, co dělají Witchera, a nebo ze studií, co prostě se teďka snaží.
Yeah, because The Witcher 4 is going to be Unreal, right? Which I'm so disappointed. I mean, they had Red Engine, bro. They had it. It was so fucking good. It did what The Witcher was. It's amazing in Witcher 3. And then they like, yeah, let's just throw that away and let's go for fucking Unreal. Like, why? Oh, I'm like legitimately disappointed in CDPR for that. Like I think that decision is gonna fuck them over. 100%, unless they work some magic in the development of The Witcher 4, that is gonna bite them in the ass so fucking hard. Mark my words. Jesus Christ. Oh, it is. Just like Stalker 2. Yeah.
Dělat nějaký open world hry prostě na Unrealu, protože na
Unrealu,
a nebo ze studií, co prostě se teďka snaží dělat nějaký open world hry prostě na Unrealu, protože na Unrealu jako vlastně
because there aren't really any.
Žádný open world hry moc. No právě to není úplně pravda, že jo. Všechny ty velké hry mají vlastní enginy, jako
holy shit, the subtitles are going really fast. Because there aren't really any
open world hry moc.
Yeah, there aren't really any open world games on Unreal. That's very true. The Stalker 2 is obviously, but you can tell because it does not handle it very well. Like, and to bring this into light here, because like a lot of people might not have played Stalker 2 or anything. I have a video on it on my main channel. Go watch it if you want. It's 55 minutes or something though, so brace yourself. But I like one of the things in Stalker 2 that like is just so painfully obvious that the Unreal Engine just cannot handle open world very well is that the NPC system, which is supposed to be the living, breathing, you know, that thing that makes the zone come alive, right? It's the life in the zone, is basically a bubble that's like 100 meters around the player. And that's the only place in the world where AI is and happens, right? So nothing happens with the AI outside of those 100 meters in the bubble around the player. Nothing, right? Or well, they've patched some of the offline features in now later, but on launch, there was absolutely nothing. Even now, it's still extremely bare bones. And stuff basically isn't rendered in. So any sort of events in the open world, anything that's just sort of supposed to happen dynamically in the open world, does not happen. There is no, it is not organic in any way, right? Stuff that happens in the world isn't happening organically. It's happening because a script decides that, oh, on the edge of this 100-meter circle, we're going to spawn in 2 opposing factions, and then they're going to start a fight. Which means that you're walking around the world and fights are happening, but they're always happening at the exact same distance away from you every single time. So you're walking up, and there's like, you can literally, in some cases, if you're in open enough of an area, you can literally see the NPCs pop up out of the ground. You can literally see the NPCs spawn in front of you, because it's less than 100 meters and there's no objects for them to spawn behind, which the game engine usually tries to do to try and make it not so obvious that it's just spawning in NPCs to make it seem like the world is alive. And this is like a massive problem because if you're just like in an open field, you can just see stuff pop up out of the ground and you're just like, oh, what the fuck? It's super abrasive. It's super obnoxious. And it happens all the time because they're like trying to artificially give you this feeling of like, oh, look, there's stuff going on in the world. And you could so painfully tell that it's just the Unreal Engine's limitation and they're just trying to hide it, right? And they're just trying to, you know, make it seem like this is happening organically or dynamically, and it's not at all, right? And that's insane. 100 meters in an open world game like Stalker 2 is that's the range the game can handle NPCs apparently. Because if not, why not make it bigger? Right? Why not have it be 200, 300 meters at the very least, right? Absolutely pathetic, right? A huge problem with the Unreal Engine. So I think that's very true. I don't think the Unreal Engine actually handles open world very well. At all.
Pravda, že jo, všechny ty velké hry mají vlastní enginy, jako že Assassin's Creed a všechno je na vlastních enginech. A teďka prostě CD Projekt jako přešel na Unreal.
Yeah, exactly.
Měli vlastně podle mě dobrý vlastní engine.
They did. It was really, really good. It was maybe not the most mod-friendly engine, but, you know, after we got like some mod tools and stuff like that, holy shit. It's like perfectly fine to mod as well. And that's never been a massive problem. You know, that's like probably, I would imagine, maybe like the only thing you could say. Because like mostly because of the scripts, because if you were modding The Witcher 3, you would basically need to do script merging like hell. Like that took a lot of time. And that's still a pain in the ass. Like still to this day. And thankfully I got a lot of practice at this point, but holy shit, if you're like me and you like pushing it a little bit with how many mods you install, oh, Witcher 3 script merger, man. Oh my god. I have so many hours in that fucking program. Whew. But thankfully it exists though, because if it didn't, like mods would just be largely incompatible with each other. But yeah, that's like probably one of the only things that you can really bitch about that engine. You know, the rest of it runs well. It looks great. It does what they need it to do very well. I have no idea why they just didn't keep developing or, you know, reiterating on that engine. Like, don't tell me that CDPR doesn't have the money to. Like, don't tell me. Like, they do. Like, even with the Cyberpunk failure, they have the money to invest in. They're so big, right? They're so acclaimed. Even with their fucking, even with them shitting their leg with Cyberpunk initially, Cyberpunk is now very good, as most people agree. With Phantom, what I was about to call it Phantom Menace again. Jesus, I've called it Phantom Menace like 15 times. What is it called? Phantom Liberty. Thank you. So Phantom Liberty, right? It's like basically, you know, redeemed in large part CDPR's fuck up with Cyberpunk, right? They have the money to develop the Red Engine further and make their own engine to fit what they need. And it would be so much better for it, right? Like, it's just a massive shame. Because you can tell, like, it wasn't optimal for Cyberpunk. You can tell, right? And I think that's fair. However, for Witcher, that's it, right? Like, and they're making Witcher 4 now. Why would you now go away from Unreal? Why? Or go away from it for Unreal.
No a slyšel jsem takový zvěsti, že teďka jsou z toho dost jako...
Že se neudělal chybu.
No, bavil jsem
Oh, interesting.
Jehož jméno nemůžu samozřejmě říct a říkám mu, tak co Unreal? On říkal, super, už tam máme udělaný kus jako nějaký krajiny a to říkám, no a v open worldu? No to ještě ne.
Wow, okay, that's interesting. They have their own proprietary engine, and I've heard rumors that now they're like...
Že se neudělal chybu.
No, bavil jsem se s jedním člověkem, jehož jméno nemůžu samozřejmě říct a říkám mu, tak co Unreal? On říkal, super, už tam máme udělaný kus jako nějaký krajiny a to říkám, no a v open worldu? No to ještě ne. To když, rok, dva zpátky a prostě furt jim to nejde, tak jak jim to jelo na tom.
Yeah, exactly. Holy shit. There might be some stuff here that's lost in translation due to, because here it says like not yet. And I think he's like, to us, that's like, oh, not yet, right? But I think maybe originally the sort of weight behind that is probably different. If you know what I mean, with like how he's phrasing it. Yeah. What about open world yet? Not yet. Like, yeah. And then he says a year and two. And when did they announce it? A year or two ago, and it still doesn't work. So that sounds like it's not like not yet. It's like, yeah, we haven't been able to make that work yet. That seems to be what he's saying. Like, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but that's kind of what I'm getting from this. That's pretty fucking damning, bro. Oh, that made me like even more pessimistic about Witcher 4. Jesus Christ. Yeah. If they still haven't like made open world work, or at least as good as their old engine, yeah. Oh, that's not good. Holy shit.
Ten je super, jako...
Teďka jak udělali vlastně, vylepšili tu grafiku kvůli těm konzolím a tak dále, to je furt nádherný, jak blázen. Takže se mi to extrémně líbí.
Jako, že jo, tak jednoznačně, tak jako samozřejmě v tom Unrealu máš obrovský tým, který má strašně moc prachu, že jo, a každá píčovina tam jako může na to nasadit 10 lidí, že to budou dělat, ale vlastně jejich dlouhodobý problém si myslím je, že jako vždycky jako něco ukážou, ono to vypadá strašně super a pak když to chceš použít, tak zjistíš, že to jako je strašně super, pokud děláš hru, která se odehrává v jedné místnosti, je tam člověk a pes. No a není žádný kaktus, ty vole. Protože renderování kaktusu je problém, ty vole. Jako, rozumíš, jako jo, že prostě, když chceš udělat hru z pouště, kde nejsou stromy, tak jako super. Což je přesně, že to třeba...
MGS5 was the Fox engine, right? The Konami engine. Or Hideo Kojima's engine. Yeah, which, dude, MGS5, that game runs really well, looks really good, plays fantastic. That is so fucking good. And I believe they as well just abandoned their engine. They just like made it for MGS5 and then they just abandoned it afterwards. I believe, if I remember correctly. The Fox engine, yeah. I think so. I might be wrong about that, but I think they did. I think there was like a huge drama about that too, where they were like, what? They just spent like so much time and money developing this engine for MGS5 and now they're throwing it away. What the fuck, you know? But yeah, that's another great example of an engine that is developed for this game and it just does the game justice and the game as a result is so fucking good, right? Right? I mean, there's some stuff you can complain about MGS5 with, obviously, like as a game, but you cannot say that it doesn't play well or run well because it does, you know?
Že jako vždycky jako něco ukážou.
They always show something.
Super.
It looks really great and then you want to use it.
Pak když to chceš použít, tak zjistíš, že to jako je strašně super.
Then you find out it's really great.
Pokud děláš hru, která se bude...
If you're making a game that takes place in one room with one person and a dog.
Tam člověk a pes. A není tam žádný kaktus, ty vole.
That's probably a bit of an inside joke with the cacti. I don't know that.
Renderování kaktusu je problém, ty vole. Jako, rozumíš, jako jo, že prostě, když chceš udělat hru z pouště, kde nejsou stromy, tak jako super. Což je, by the way, přesně, že třeba Metal Gear 5, který teda není na Unrealu, tuším, nebo ne, ten je na něčem jejich vlastním. No. Ale jo, prostě kdybyste teďka chtěl udělat hru na Unrealu z nějakých skal, tak super, ale neuměli stromy strašně dlouho.
Yeah. I mean, it still can't do foliage, like at all. It can't. Like, again, Stalker 2, like, it can't do foliage. Like, it just can't. It's fucking horrendous. Like, foliage looks ass if you run it native, and then you have to use TAA or upscaling for it to make it not look like pixelated shit. And when you do, it just looks super blurry. And if you only use TAA, you'll have a ton of ghosting as well, right? Like, it's horrendous. It's just horrendous.
Protože ten jejich nanite prostě doteďka neuměl generovat vegetaci. Teď ji teda umí a jsou úplně...
Now it can? Yeah, I would disagree. I think he means like in just like a... Let's see what it says. Yeah. So like, I'm assuming that's very likely just these very specifically rendered videos and stuff like that. I don't know. Maybe he's also talking about Unreal 5.5 though, because apparently that's supposed to fix a lot of stuff and yada yada. I've heard, but it's not out yet, I believe, right?
A ještě nejlepší, že ty lesy si můžeš koupit od nějakého Franty za $1000 a můžeš udělat hru z lesa. Prostě my jsme to 2 roky vyvíjeli stromy, ty vole, nějaký Franta.
Nějakou generaci automaticky.
No, ale v tom shopu prostě Franta prodává stromy do různých vegetačních pásem, prostě ty stromy pro úplně božsky a tak. Až na to, že pak se podíváš, že na nějaký demo a zjistíš, že to sice vypadá úplně božsky, jako fotky prostě, nebo jako film, ale musíš na to mít komp.
Yeah, exactly right. So, and that's like another thing is like it looks good in a film use, right? So if you can dedicate as much time and computer power to dedicate to rendering an image in the Unreal Engine once, like when like you're rendering out a sequence or a movie, it probably looks great. Probably looks fantastic. I've seen some clips of the Unreal Engine. Looks great, right? Nothing wrong with it at all. looks great. But when you're doing it for a video game, it's different because you need to do that render real time, continuous, based on player input. It's different, right? And then in addition, exactly, you need like what kind of gear, you know? Do you fucking need to run that shit? Like, I have a pretty decent above average setup. I have a 4070 Ti Super OC, and I have a 7800X3D. I have 32 gigs of RAM, 6000 megahertz. You know, it's a good above average system, right? Especially for gaming, because like 7800X3D is fantastic for gaming. Stalker 2 for me, native, without any sort of aids, you know, like upscaling, in terms of FPS and without frame generation, I ran at like 40 frames in like some of the more demanding areas. Not like the most demanding, but like some of the more demanding areas, like around settlements and stuff like that. 40 frames per second. 40, dude. 40. Holy shit. I needed upscaling and frame generation to get above 100. That's ridiculous. That's just fucking ridiculous. Like, holy shit. On my setup, imagine like the more average gamer, right? Who is on a even older gen CPU, is unfortunate enough to be on Intel maybe, and has like a 30 series or a 20 series card. Oh, bro, that's not a good experience. Like, the fuck is that? And then you're talking about fucking barrier to entry here, because when you have like shit that is that expensive for you to just be able to play a game, like, that's insane.
Za 200 litrů a maximálně 4 lidi tam můžou chodit, protože pak to se ani na tom komputeru 200 litrů se to v tom nastavení, který ten frontač.
Yeah, exactly. And it can't fucking handle NPCs like at all. I don't know why, but that seems to be a fucking problem.
Ti ukazuje, se to nehne, jo, prostě takže jako a my, když jsme to zkoušeli, tak prostě Unreal nám prostě říkali, jo, to půjde všechno, a nešlo to, dali jsme tam 3 světla a bylo to v prdeli.
Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah, dude, holy shit. I'm so fucking spot on. Holy crap. Unreal just told us, yeah, everything will work, and it didn't. Because that's the impression that I have too, is that Unreal Engine is advertising itself to developers as this sort of all-in-one solution. Like, it can do anything you need it to do. You know, yeah, you pay us for it, and it will do anything you need to do, and you don't have to worry about having to develop your own stuff. That's sort of the pretense for it, right? That's sort of like what it's being sold and advertised to developers as. And then it turns out, hey, it doesn't actually work that well for this thing, because, like it says here, we put 3 lights there, and it was fucked up. You know, that's, yeah.
Do CryEngine jsme dali 20 světel.
With CryEngine, we put in 20 lights, 10 times as many trees, and it worked, right? And again, KCD2 has like the densest vegetation and forests I've seen in a long time. Like, they're genuinely like realistic. Like, it's pretty impressive what they've been able to do. And they look great up close. They look great at far. They look great. Like, there's like points in the game where you can be in Trotsky Castle, right? Which overlooks this huge region. And there's vegetation and forest all the way around. And you can like literally sit there and just look out of it. And like, yeah, some of it's probably LODs and stuff at like the very, very distant ranges. But you can sit there and look out. You don't drop a fucking frame, dude. Like, it's insane. It runs so well, and it just handles it. You know, you can just litter the world with objects and trees and lighting, and it looks great, right? It looks great, and it's smooth, and you have good FPS, you know.
On byl taky docela náročný, kam když vyšel z letu, ne? Jako
jo.
Trošku víc, no. Než vlastně.
I mean, like, you know, when you think about like CryEngine for Crysis and shit, right? Because I believe that's where it was like initially developed and used for. Even those games, like Crysis back in the day, if anyone remembers that, I actually played those games. I fucking loved those games so much. Holy shit. They were like, for a long time, sort of the benchmark games, right? If you can run Crysis, oh, that was good. You know, that a good PC, you could run Crysis. And I don't think it was because Crysis was that demanding. I think it was because it just introduced a lot of new stuff visually, right? And as a result was demanding. I don't think it was because the engine was demanding. I think, again, I don't know. I'm not a developer. Again, someone, if anyone knows, let me know. But I am fairly sure that CryEngine was never like, it was never demanding because it was unoptimized. It was demanding because it was adding a lot of these new features that actually looked good compared to Unreal Engine, right? That's my impression of it. And the moment you started like, you didn't need like fantastic software to run Crysis, right? Maybe like in the very, very beginning. But I remember like by Crysis 3 and stuff like that, 2 and 3, that was comfortable to run. You know, I was like running that on PCs and it was like not a problem on my PCs back then, you know, which were not like anything special. And I could run that game well. So I believe CryEngine has kind of always been fairly well optimized. And especially like as long as you just met like sort of the requirement for it, it was fine, right? Obviously, it was if you were trying to run CryEngine on shitty software or shitty hardware, sorry, or outdated software, then yeah, you'd probably have the problems. But the moment you sort of got up to speed, it was fine, right? And at that point, it was just not a problem. That's sort of my experience with it, or what I remember. Again, that's like, what, 15, 20 years ago, but yeah.
CryEngine využívá už teď jenom snad, co je poslední hra?
No nic skoro.
Kingdom Come a...
Yeah. Yeah, Hunt probably uses it too, right?
Hunt, že jo, no.
Star Citizen se děje vlastní, že?
Yeah, Star Citizen is its own. That's completely... it's not completely proprietary. Didn't they use... They used something as a base, but I don't remember what it is. Is it CryEngine base? Let me check. Star Citizen engine. Star Citizen engine. Yeah, it's a heavily I'm sorry, I cannot speak today. It's fucking 9 a.m. and I'm apparently up too early. StarEngine is a heavily refactored version of CryEngine 3. So it is actually CryEngine, technically, but it is very heavily modified. I think that's what I've heard as well, is that like it's sort of like unrecognizable as the original engine because they've done so much to it. But yeah, that's apparently actually CryEngine. That was the basis. Yeah, it started on CryEngine. CryEngine was sold to Amazon and became Lumberyard. CIG switched to Lumberyard, but continued to edit the engine beyond its core design. Thus, this has been dubbed StarEngine. Okay. Yeah, because I remember the whole Lumberyard thing. Yeah, okay. So technically it's CryEngine, Lumberyard, and their own stuff, basically. It's sort of like an amalgamation of everything. Okay, interesting. Very, very interesting. But yeah, Hunt Showdown apparently is let's double check that as well. Hunt Showdown engine. Well, it's made by Crytek. I just realized. I didn't know that. Holy shit. Yeah, it's actually made by Crytek. Of course it's made on CryEngine then, right? Yeah, okay. That's yeah. And Hunt Showdown as well, I believe, runs extremely well. It's also, as far as I'm aware, has very good audio, which so does KCD2. Very good audio. But I believe Hunt Showdown is kind of like, it's more of an FPS game, and it's a sort of survival extraction shooter. And it's very, I think, praised for how good the audio is in that game. So, that's pretty cool.
Star Citizen se děje vlastní, že? Což je teda, by the way, Star Citizen je úplně nechápu, jak to vůbec jako, ta hra je prostě neuvěřitelná.
Yeah.
Jakože všichni o tom furt mají nějaký...
I mean, Star Citizen, it does get a lot of hate, Star Citizen, which is like a completely different topic here. But Star Citizen does get a lot of hate, but dude, Star Citizen, it's doing stuff that like no one else has done in gaming. And I think that's really cool. And like, I think that's why I'm not so negative to Star Citizen, as I know a lot of people are. A lot of people are like, oh, fucking scam, fucking blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, if you look at what they're actually doing and what they're actually able to make in terms of software and, you know, features in their game, it's impressive. Now, what isn't so impressive is the speed at which they're doing it. Now, I understand that stuff takes time. I do. But they're taking their fucking sweet time, and it seems like an extremely inefficient development system that they have, or development structure with CIG. It really does. And that's like the thing that I'm concerned about when it comes to Star Citizen, is just how, you know, how much, you know, how big for its breaches it's gotten, you know, like how just incredibly overwhelming I think the undertaking is. I hope they can pull it off, and I hope that once we start getting a lot of these core systems down, they can actually start weaving it together, and actually we can start actually getting a sort of cohesive experience. Because a lot of the bare bones stuff is there, but I think it's just, that's concerning for me, is that how little we've actually gotten of the game at this point, you know? I think that's pretty concerning. I did also hear someone say, I think it was actually Clean, I was watching his stream the other day, and I think he said something about a Star Citizen should like release basically a stable version the moment they sort of have persistence. They should release like a stable version. I don't know if they actually have it now. I haven't played Star Citizen in years, but when they have persistence, they should actually release a sort of stable build of the game and just let people play that. And then they can keep developing it and then just re-release again like a stable version, or as close to stable as at least as they can get it, so that people sort of have something to play instead of constantly being on these up-to-date versions of the game, which are usually always very broken, buggy, and shit like that. But yeah, interesting.
To je přesně takový, to Star Citizenu to je něco, jak když si povídají lidi o mně trochu, jakože jo, to je ta hra, jak žádná hra není, jak okradli, vole, 2 miliony lidí. Ta hra je úplně neuvěřitelná.
Yeah. That game is completely unbelievable. Like, there's just they do so much cool stuff. They really do. And I think like that's the stuff that impresses me about Star Citizen, is like how much they've actually innovated, which they have. Like, they have innovated a lot in terms of the software and the systems that they're able to use for the game. It's really cool.
Já si to furt chci zahrát.
Like the development tools and world building tools, and it's impressive stuff. Like all the stuff like transitioning from inside a ship to space fluidly, which I think they're now able to do pretty well, to fly a ship in space, to go down into a planet's atmosphere seamlessly, transition into atmosphere, load into the planet, and it's no loading in, it's just like done all seamlessly. Impressive, dude. It's impressive what that game does.
$1 co do toho narvali to asi $200 milionů nebo kolik.
To nejdražší hra.
Je tam jako vidět, ale prostě, jo. A ta hra furt není hotová, jasně, ale ty vole, to je prostě, tam můžeš dostat ten, epidermický teplotní šok, jak se tomu říká? Epidermický nebo něco to. Jo, prostě vylezeš bez skafandru na mráz, jo, a dostaneš tam tenhle šok, ale začneš to fakt jako simulovat realisticky. Prostě sedneš si do auta, jsi v raketě, vyjedeš s obrněným autem z rakety a zamlžeš se ti v okna. Realisticky, prostě takhle kokiny tam mají prostě.
Hlavně já koukal, teď byl ten single player trailer vyšel, že?
No.
To vypadá tak krásně.
Ty se to už 6 let mělo být, ale,
jako jo,
ale prostě, ale všechno, co tam jde dělat, je úplně neskutečný.
Yeah. So shit, well, that was a long discussion. That was a 40-minute rant from me out of a 4-minute video, but yeah, damn. I think it's very interesting with Unreal and stuff like that. I hope more studios are going to move away from Unreal. I would really hope so, at least. I think it's concerning how much of a grip Unreal Engine has on the developer community and like games development. Like, Unreal Engine has game developers by the fucking balls. I don't think that's good. And I don't think it's good to have a monopoly like that ever. Again, if it was a monopoly because the product was just so good, fine. Right? But the product isn't just so good, right? Now, this is also probably a little bit of growing pains, I would say, in games development. And I think we are going to start getting, probably going to start getting more competitors to Unreal Engine who are going to try and take their same model, basically, of like, okay, we're not going to focus on games development, we're just going to make game development engines and sell them to games developers. But I think, so I do think Unreal Engine is going to get competition in that. I at least very, very, very much hope they do soon, because it's getting kind of stupid. But yeah, like I said, it's growing pains. A lot of this stuff is going to resolve itself, I think. Like, give it 5 more years, it's going to be a lot better. Unreal Engine might also grow into what it needs to be as a result of all of this. It might actually improve enough to the point where it can be a really good thing for games. We'll see. It's going to be interesting regardless, but yeah. In its current state, I don't have a lot left over for Unreal Engine, but yeah. Interesting discussion, interesting. Very, very good video. I was kind of excited to see this, so that's kind of cool, actually. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Is this maybe the original podcast? Yeah. Maybe I should actually watch that if it's like, if it's subtitled. That could have been interesting. But yeah, anyways, so much for that. So yeah, let's hope we can get some more engines in. Like, I just hope people go back to developing proprietary stuff. That would be like the best, I think. Develop proprietary stuff that's for your game. You know? I think that would be the best.